Observe that we have a quorum present.
Yes, sir.
Quorum being present, I now declare. I'm going to ask Lonnie Waters if he will lead us in an invocation, please.
Lord, as we gather in here, we just appreciate all the workers that help us get through the storm, clear the roads, linemen, county workers, the city workers have just done an exceptional job. Lord, we just want to give them credit and give you the credit for letting us have people that's that dedicated. Lord, as we go through this meeting, we ask you to watch over and give us guidance and give us direction on what to do best for the city of Jasper and for this community. Lord, we ask you all these favors and blessings in your name. Amen.
Council, we lead us to the pledge of allegiance to our flag, all around.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you for being here. And we do have a rather lengthy session tonight, so let's get started. Council, we have the agenda as presented to us. I will entertain a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented. Second. Have a motion to second to adopt. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. The motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We want to approve the minutes of the October the 5th, 2020 public hearing, and the October the 5th regular council meeting, and the October the 12th special call meeting. Council, those minutes have been presented to each of you. I will entertain a motion that we adopt the minutes as presented.
Make a motion, we adopt the minutes as presented.
And a second, please. Second. Have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor tonight. I'm going to come forward and I'm going to ask our state representative, Rick Jasper, if he will, and let's get about right here. Is this okay?
There's a spot.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know him, and I'm sure there's no one in this room, this is our state representative, Rick Jasperse. And at the end of every legislative biennium, the Georgia Municipal Association honors legislators who have defended home rule principles both in their communities and under the Gold Dome. This honor is called the Champion of Georgia Cities Award, and we are happy today to present this award to our Georgia House Representative, Rick Jasperse. Rick Jasperse has been a friend to the city of Jasper and to all local governments in the state of Georgia. The people of House District 11 are fortunate to have a representative that values the principles of local control and home rule. As mayor of the city of Jasper, it is my honor to recognize Representative Jasper as the champion of Georgia's cities.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mayor, I appreciate that and enjoy working with cities. I know what an integral part you guys are to making our community strong and vibrant, and I'll always continue to do so.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
As an unexpected surprise for us tonight, I believe Zach Waters has a presentation to the city of Jasper, and I'm going to ask him if he would come forward to us and bring that presentation.
This presentation is actually to present the city of Jasper with a check for the surplus equipment auction that we held on October the 24th. City of Jasper and their employees and council put together an equipment auction with roughly 100 items. We had items ranging anywhere from $5 to just shy of $16,000. And the total due to the city of Jasper after this auction, I have a check tonight for $130,430. And appreciate the opportunity of working with y'all. And I'm going to present you with a check.
Thank you so much. We're going to get your picture back.
And, I think Mary wants another one.
Let me have some.
Mary? Okay. And now watch how quickly this goes out of my hand into our financial. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Thank you, y'all did a good job.
Wonderful job.
Thank you guys for being here.
Great job.
Under new business, council, I would like to entertain a motion that we approve Mr. Parish Lowrie to serve on our Downtown Development Authority, and I think this will fill our authority up. We had this discussion, I believe, individually with each of you, so I'll take a motion to approve him for this position.
Make a motion.
So moved. We have a lot of motions. Can I have a lot of seconds?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. The motion carries. If you will, please. We got a little hot spot there. So there are a couple of things that I have to do to make sure this is all official with the state and every regulation.
Yes, sir.
One of those is to give you this oath of office.
Okay.
So, if you will, repeat your name. I
Parish Lowrie.
do swear or affirm that I will well and truly perform the duties of member of the Downtown Development Authority to the best of my abilities and will take only my lawful compensation. I do further swear that I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money, such as what I just gave away, due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof, that I am not the holder of any office or trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state, which I am prohibited from holding by the laws of the state of Georgia, and that I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state. If you will, please say, I do.
I do.
And then the state of Georgia requires that every office holder on a development authority do an oath that says that they are loyal to the state. I, please state your name in full.
I, Parish Lowrie.
A citizen of the city of Jasper, Pickens County, Georgia, and being an appointed official of the city of Jasper, Georgia, and the recipient of public funds for services rendered as such employee, do hereby solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Georgia.
I will.
Thank you so much. You have been privileged for your name. Just sign it and then give it to Karen. Oh, there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate your time. Under item B, consideration and approval of the request for Reinhardt University to utilize Main Street for the 2021 Shamrock Stroll. I do so sincerely hope that we are able to do this when this comes up. So I'm going to ask Ms. Dale Morrissey if she would come forward and present this to our council.
Okay, the fourth annual Shamrock Stroll will be held March 13th in downtown Jasper. And this is our program, Pickens Scholars Program, which provides scholarships for Pickens County students attending Reinhardt University. Amberly Godfrey is our chair again this year. And we hope to raise a lot of funds on March 13th. We're looking this year, because we have grown, of doing it downtown in front of the courthouse area, blocking off that part of Main Street. We'll be utilizing Penley Creek Brewery this year, so we can utilize, use a current local company here in Jasper. And we're excited about it and look forward to it. Last year, as you know, it was canceled 2 days prior to the event, but this year we're already starting our planning and encouraging people to come downtown and shop downtown and participate in the event, but yet keep the businesses open and hopefully bring in some business for downtown.
Awesome.
Great program.
Council, do you have any questions for Dale Morrissey?
It's a great program. We appreciate all y'all do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I would entertain a motion at this time to approve this request.
Move we approve request for Reinhardt to have their Shamrock Stroll on March 13th, 2021. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Good business.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it so much.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Under item C of new business, consideration of ordinance 2020-24 for the amendment of Chapter 94 zoning ordinance and the addition of Chapter 95 signed to the official code of the city of Jasper, Georgia. Now, ultimately, Rebecca will speak to this, but we're going to start with our city attorney, David Siphon, and let him weigh in on this before we start. David, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that Rebecca and her team have done a good job. Council members have done a good job rewriting the zoning ordinance, which is a major project. Rebecca and I have talked a couple of times, and I know that she's made some, probably all the suggested changes. I did not get the final version of the ordinance till this morning, so I'm going to be reviewing it one final time just to be sure that there are no issues there, and we'll be looking at it during November because the ordinance is 94 pages long, so it takes some time to get through it. I do want to say, as I said before, that Rebecca has done a great job with the ordinance, her and her team. I don't expect there to be any changes. If there are, it'd just be minor changes. So I think we're fine to go ahead and have a motion to introduce the ordinance tonight, as well as the sign ordinance. And my understanding is also that Rebecca has a presentation for the council and the public to talk about the changes and what's happening with the new ordinances.
Okay, let's go to you, Rebecca, if you will, and then after you get done, we'll ask Dr. Proctor and Councilman Redfield about a motion, okay?
All right, so I will try and be brief, but also give the process its due, and I want to point out some, policy decisions that were made along the way, and also kind of iterate the process that we went through. So we initiated the rewrite process in April and have gone through 8 development review committee meetings and talked through exactly what the priorities of those drafts were through that process. You can go 2 slides. And so this is kind of what our process looked like with those 8 meetings and what we looked at in between each, reviewing both policy direction as well as issue identification and comments on drafts that proceed through the process. Next slide. So as a result of the project, we kind of had two primary deliverables, one being the kind of directions and findings report after really understanding what needed to change, and then subsequent to that, the actual zoning code and sign code rewrite drafts. So the process really was a full overhaul of the structure. A lot of the content is intact. We did remove the sign code from the zoning ordinance and put that in a different one to kind of clean it up legally and shored up a lot of procedures, clarified some of what needed to be done and put some things in there that were maybe lacking today. And added some more administrative clarity so that staff had a clearer direction of how to do things. So we developed outlines for both the zoning ordinance and the sign ordinance to kind of outline what that structure was. So this is everything that we restructured, put a lot of the administration at the end of the document so that the substance is at the beginning. And did the same for the sign code, so terminology, process, and things at the end. So next we assessed procedures and made changes, and then added where they're lacking today. So we defined application submission requirements that maybe needed some clarity in the ordinance today. Added some other procedures that really clarified those, and then also, I'll point it out on the chart on the next page, but clarified and then also maybe adjusted some of the decision-making bodies today. So this is a chart of all of those procedures, both the concurrent variance process, which is a variance that is given concurrent with a rezoning project, and then the appeal of administrative decision process are completely new processes in this ordinance. And so the appeal of administrative decision process, final decision maker is city council, and the major change as far as who the decision making body was falls within the variance. So right now you see that planning commission makes a recommendation, and then mayor and city council is the ultimate decision making body for those today. And that is a departure from current code. And then also to the variance procedures, we added a set of prohibited variances, and what that did is kind of limits the authority so that applicants don't circumvent the ordinance in a way, getting use variances and things like that. And then added administrative variance provisions. So there's a limitation on what staff can approve, and that's outlined in the ordinance, but there is a process to where they don't have to go through that larger process. And then public notice, we just shore those up with the state of Georgia requirements. You had something that was a little bit more substantial with the letter notification, so we have just made those consistent with state law requirements. All right, so we can head into the sign ordinance, and I'll run through each of the different sign types and outline what we are proposing to change in the draft. Next slide. And next slide. All right, so again, we're reviewing, regulating each of the sign types, kind of cleaning up and clarifying those definitions, adding charts, but then also you had a lot of existing charts that were really readable and helps administer the code. So we definitely cleaned those up and made them consistent with the regulations we were changing. And then clarify the illumination standards. In some places it's not clear what kinds of signs are allowed to be illuminated and also what type of illumination. So we did a lot to add regulations around that. So first I'll go to pole signs. We proposed prohibiting new pole signs, requiring that the existing pole signs get a panel exchange. So that is, the structure can remain, but you can take out that panel and replace it. And, you know, that's a maintenance provision so that they're allowed to continue in perpetuity as is, but any structural changes would mandate that they change the sign to a conforming sign. And we reduce the maximum sizes that are allowed. So then with ground signs, we changed from a construction standard standpoint. In the proposed draft, we are requiring the ground signs be monument style from an aesthetic standpoint, prohibit internal illumination, and with these two provisions kind of combined, what that also does is helps you regulate billboards, and that's very intentional to not specifically call out billboards as a sign type. Rather, they are regulated by the time, manner, and place of, you know, whether or not they are a pole sign type, exceeding a certain size, and so that's how we're regulating things like billboards today. All right, and wall signs, we have defined 3 different types of wall signs that we're calling types of building signs, and that's wall, awning, and projecting. So giving tenants and business owners a little bit of flexibility in what kind of sign they have and putting standards around what those types of signs are. And roof signs, so in this draft, we are proposing to prohibit them. So again, they would, through attrition, be, you know, as businesses change, new businesses would not be able to put back roof signs in a conforming manner, but they would be allowed to have panel exchanges. And for banner signs, we've maintained the existing regulations and just removed any content regulation that previously existed in those. Window signs, there were just kind of clarified some ambiguities and cleaned up some of the language around those and reduced the coverage from 25 to 20%. So that brings me to illumination. In the existing sign ordinance, we have defined these sign types: halo, push-through, gooseneck, channel, changeable copy, as internal and external illumination. And I'll show you in the charts that we have been explicit about what types of signs can receive which types of illumination. And then we also made 2 different sign standards, one for the central business district to really heighten the character there and make it a little bit of a different place, and then one for the rest of the commercial districts in the city. So everywhere else in the city, these are the kinds of illumination that would be allowed. So cabinet lighting is proposed to be prohibited today, and so that's those just cabinets that are rectangular boxes that you have the acrylic panel in them, and then color halo lighting. You can see the Resilient Jiu-Jitsu sign. The acrylic panels are colored, but the illumination, the actual light source in there is white, so that's what's in the proposal today, is that these the colored illumination is prohibited. And then in contrast to that, what would be proposed to be permitted in the central business district would be external illumination, with the exception of kind of the period neon signs that are really coming into appeal right now, just to highlight the central business district as that special downtown district. And so we separated the building types into 3 different types. That's building signs, other permanent signs, and temporary signs. So this is the chart you can see where you can kind of quick reference, compare different sign types, so it's easier from a staff administration standpoint, but then also from an applicant standpoint, and it is really clear whether or not the illumination is permitted or not. And these are augmented by specific text in the ordinance to clarify it even further. And this is everything related to other permanent signs and then temporary signs. So it's very clear which kind of sign you fit into, and each type is defined. So other sign standards that we added to the ordinance, non-conforming provisions, so that it is clear if you've got one of those non-conforming situations, something that was legal at one point and is not anymore, then there's a clear path for how that sign can continue to exist. Revocation provisions, so that if somebody has done something in violation of the ordinance, then there's a clear process for that. an appeals process referencing zoning ordinance so that there isn't conflicting information in each, and then a sign variance process as well. So that takes me into, we'll move into the zoning code and walk through kind of what changes you can expect in that draft. So by and large, the zoning code, as it pertains to uses, we did not make a whole lot of wholesale changes. We cleaned up the use table, maybe changed some of the symbols on it. Instead of an X for permitted use, it's now a P to be a little bit more clear. We identified and had David and his team look at some sensitive uses just to make sure we're on the up and up with how we're regulating those. Reorganized it a little bit, referenced some supplemental regulations related to some of those uses, and then did add a couple of specific use regulations related to mostly some new residential uses that I'll get into. Let's see, and then in the central business district, we also are using that existing zoning district, have established some specific regulations related to that, building materials. I mentioned the sign materials, so you'll see some augmented design requirements related to that. This is the first added use in the use table. So senior housing, in your comprehensive plan, there's a lot of support and desire to add senior housing. And so we developed this senior housing use with a set of universal design requirements. And so that's anything from type of door handles and things that have to be more accessible to light switch locations and things. Some minimal design requirements to be able to make use of this. We did want to point out that right now in the draft, that is set for 20 density units an acre, and that is listed as by right in the R2 and R3 districts, and then conditional in some of the other districts. So you'll find that on the use table. And this is where you'll find, this is the use table that you'll find and see all those districts and what uses are permitted versus conditional. And if it's left blank, then it's not permitted at all. And I should say another thing that we added to use provisions, I think a lot of times, applicants try to come up with the most creative way to come in and suggest a use that is not ever contemplated in your zoning ordinance. So there are also provisions that staff can run through to identify what use it most closely identifies with, gives them a set of criteria to really bounce those off of, and then if they still can't come to a conclusion, then there's a process to go through mayor and city council. So cottage housing was another one that came out of the desire to have more diversity of housing types, and so those require different pods. 4 to 12 units per pod is allowed, with a maximum height of 25 feet and an approximate density of 11.5 maximum per acre. Unit size of a minimum of 1,500, and then there are minimal design requirements for those as well as some specific green space requirements based on the number of units you have. And those are listed by right in R3 and DRI6 as the more, dense, more urban, if you will, residential zoning districts, but and not allowed in the use table right now anywhere else. All right, and then that brings me to the special and overlay districts. Next. So 2 of the 3 of these are new. The PUD, new or completely reimagined. The PUD is existing in your ordinance today, but it is completely different from what you have used in the past. And then the Runway Protection Zone Overlay District is also brand new. The Environmental Conservation Overlay is in your ordinance today and largely unchanged in the draft that you've got. So first, the plan unit development. What you've got today is a set of very specific criteria to where it's almost just another zoning district. And so what we've done is completely open that up to be where you've got kind of minimum barrier to entry, so a minimum acreage threshold of 15 acres and a maximum density of 8. per acre, and then a requirement for a mix of uses. And the mix of uses, you have to have a certain mix of those that are identified in that table to make sure it's not, you know, multifamily housing and single-family housing. You've got to have something that specifically those different uses. So beyond that, then you are proposing your own zoning district, and that provides a lot of flexibility because there's not, you cannot contemplate every good development that is in conformance with your comprehensive plan that will come through your doors. And that can seem really scary because it is so open, but it does provide a lot of benefit because, one, the standard for the materials that an applicant has to bring forward is so much more significant. They have to take their level of drawings and plans a lot further than if they were just coming in for a traditional rezoning. You know, the application requirements necessitate that. But it gives you that flexibility for those projects that are good and congruent with your comprehensive plan. It gives you a mechanism for allowing those without too much heartache. Next. The Runway Protection Overlay District is born out of the FAA guidelines for land uses and building heights around airports. And so it identifies different incompatible uses and says that those are prohibited. And identifies maximum height. This would be an overlay district, so it would not be over an entire parcel. It is just going to be overlaid onto different components of parcels where appropriate related to the flight path patterns. Now, right now in the ordinance, it's just an enabling legislation. You would have to come back through and actually perform a rezoning on those properties. So put a sign out, put an ad in the newspaper to actually enact that on any kind of property. All right, and so that brings me to the downtown design standards, and I'll run through just kind of a summary of what those are. So we added general building design standards for the city as a whole, and those are pretty minimal, but we've got some material requirements, some metal prohibition, and then a fenestration requirement that would be identified through the permitting process. And then we've got something a little bit more substantial for the downtown design standards, some more prohibited materials and more substantial fenestration requirement. And then something that is pretty forward-thinking from a sustainability standpoint. We've got a menu of a certain requirement for certain projects of a specific size in the ordinance, and then a menu of options. And you've got a set of points that you have to add up in that menu of options to be able to attain that requirement. And it's anything from bicycle parking that gets you points to more substantial stormwater runoff, and then there's even the ability to present an alternative measure if there's something we haven't contemplated, and you've got a good idea for a sustainability measure, then it's something that can be presented and points obtained for that. And then just really quickly run through some other smaller things, but necessary to point out. Underground utilities, from a greenfield standpoint, this is something that is pretty typical anyway, but it is now explicit in the ordinance that projects of a certain size do have to underground utilities. Individual metering for utilities on projects like townhouses is something that we're seeing our chief building officials and things are seeing that as a quality design standard and benefits the future homeowners. So we've added those. Some street provisions for both street extensions where they're not tied to existing residential uses, and private street provisions, and new fence standards. And some additional adjustments, short of a true land development ordinance, we have added some surety bond requirements. And those are really clear and spelled out so that you can have those protections. And then we've, in addition to that, we've added access point requirements, and that's what this chart is on the presentation. For developments of a certain size, there are requirements for additional access points, vehicular access points, so we've added that. And now just to run through the next steps. We're here today at the first read, required by your charter. Then the Planning Commission will have a public hearing before the Planning Commission on November 24th. And then we'll come back on December 7th for the second read public hearing and hopefully adoption of the draft ordinances. And then, subsequent to that will be those additional processes for the zoning map amendment, the rezoning for the runway protection zone overlay. And then we've also got a stormwater ordinance draft started, so I think we can present that at that time as well. That concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions.
So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you here, I can't emphasize how she ran through this fairly quickly, but for those who went through this process for our city, there was nothing at all quick about it. It took a tremendous amount of time, and we need to commend Dr. Proctor and Kurt Bradfield as our committee members who did that, and also our city manager, Brandon Douglas, who sat through every single one of these meetings with input from some of our public also. So thank you for that, and at this point, I'm going to defer to Dr. Proctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And for comments and our council member Bradfield.
Well, obviously, this is a culmination of a lot of hard work, and it does a lot of really important things for the phase of our development that we're in. It addresses some aesthetic wishes, so that the appearance of our city long-term will be somewhat set in stone, even though this is a very flexible document. And it also gives us flexibility, as Rebecca mentioned, with respect to housing, which in any form of future for economic development, obtainable housing and different types of housing is going to be very, very important. It also addresses some of the challenges that we have met in the last year or so with respect to communication around zonings, and somewhat simplifies that process. It's been a real honor to work on the committee. It's been a real honor to work with Clark Patterson and Lee, who are, again, a known player in the southeast across the country in these type of projects. And I think it'll be well worth the efforts as we begin to see things change in our city and in our county. So greatly appreciate all the hard work that everybody's done, including staff. So thank you.
I would echo what the mayor has said and Dr. Proctor. CPO has been phenomenal. Brandon Douglas, Dr. Proctor has put in a lot of time, so thank you both for that. This is one of those administrative boring topics that is to benefit the entire community from here on out. And so thank you very much for your time.
Now, Brandon, did we require a motion on this and we're moving this forward until the next date, I assume?
This will be the first reading, accepted as first reading.
Okay, so council, I entertain a motion that we approve the ordinance 2020-24 for first review.
So moved.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The motion carries, and we will move to our next step on this. And Rebecca, again, our thanks to you.
Mayor, do you need a separate motion for the addition of Chapter 95 for that consideration?
The original, let's do that legally, and I would entertain a motion to approve Chapter 95 signs to the official code of the city of Jasper.
So moved.
And a second to that.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
Opposed, same. The motion carries unanimously. So we'll move both of those forward. Under item D, consideration and approval of the bid for a raw water intake replacement. Brandon and our city manager Brandon Douglas and Lindsay Williams, our treasurer. City Financial Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I take a week off and I get bumped down to midway through the agenda, so no big deal. I've enjoyed not speaking, so.
I got you as quick as I could.
I appreciate it, Mayor. Y'all were doing good until we got hung up with Rebecca, but it was good information. Good job, Rebecca. You may recall sometime back we've been discussing how we needed to update and upgrade our raw water intake at Long Swamp Creek. You all had authorized us to move forward with the bids. Lindsay and David Hall had worked together on getting kind of a bid sheet published and trying to solicit some vendors to kind of do an all-inclusive but yet a la carte upgrade to the raw water pump that currently has a 1 million gallon per day pump, variable frequency drive, electrical plumbing. Unfortunately, in your packets, as been pointed out by staff, we did not receive a viable bid in so much as what we had solicited. And what that means is we are seeking now, after speaking with David Hall today about this matter, we're going to have to rebid this particular item in so much as doing separate components. David spoke with one of the vendors and asked why they did not put in for the bid. And the idea is because there's so many different moving parts, because we are not just redoing the whole kit and caboodle, we are trying to be mindful of expenses, even though it could exceed up to $100,000. We don't want to get into that $250,000 plus range. So what David asked one of the vendors was, what was the issue? And they did not want to take ownership of, this component, and yet if someone else has to come in and do the variable frequency drive, what warranty, what assurances, etc. So I think what Lindsay and David are going to be working on, and she can speak to it if need be, but I think they're going to make sure you all are comfortable with going back to the drawing board, re-seeking kind of a few bids on a few items, all of which will quite possibly exceed $25,000. Therefore, the bid process in accordance with our purchasing policy. So David seems to think that if we do some of the plumbing and outsource some of the electrical, and then a couple of vendors make separately quote on the pump, and quite possibly the variable frequency drive. So you may have a vendor who goes for two of the components, but not all. He thinks that could go up to about $75,000. Obviously, my goal is to get this to you all by the December 7th meeting, just because it's an identified need. We have the proceeds in accordance to when we refinance the loans, the bond. So the money is not the issue, it's just the timeliness of getting vendors lined up and to get the work done. So just want to give you all that update / request for us to just move forward in that new direction in light of what we now know is not very appealing to some of the vendors out there.
Council, entertain a motion.
Make a motion, Paul. Make a motion that staff continue the process and bring us information when it's available, hopefully at the December meeting.
Have a motion.
Second.
Have a second.
And you second that?
Yeah, I did. Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any further discussion?
Would it be out of the realm of possibilities to ask for quotes with and without labor?
That's what we're gonna seek out, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Item E, discussion of the City of Jasper property and casualty insurance. And I'm going to ask Brandon and Beverly to bring this to us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, for the public, not to shirk my responsibility of being the city manager and being on top of things, but admittingly, Beverly and her team did a phenomenal job putting this agenda along with the mayor together. I am going to call an audible and ask her just to kind of take the lion's share of kind of explaining what this is, time constraints, and what is this whole GERMA thing. So Beverly?
Okay, each year we have insurance that we pay for to cover our vehicles, our buildings, our liability as far as if something happens, what the city has to pay to cover damages. And in beginning the budget process, we were looking at anything and everything to help us lower expenditures. And one of these things was the property and casualty insurance. So we reached out to GERMA, which is, it stands for Georgia Interlocal Risk Management Agency, and they are administered by the GMA, Georgia Municipal Association, and currently provide services to over 370 cities across the state. It is a group risk program. The coverage is not limited. It's based on an occurrence basis. And they also provide other things like $250,000 of cyber liability coverage, $250,000 of event management coverage, and $250,000 in cyber extortion. The plan includes $50,000 annually for expenses incurred if in the event there's a crisis management firm brought in to cover a crisis event. Property appraisals are done free of charge every 3 years so that we have the level of coverage that is appropriate. We are also offered a free service from a law firm that we can use to ask any kind of question as it pertains to employee law. And they would waive any deductible if their advice to us results in a subsequent claim. They also offer annually $10,000 in safety grants, and that can be used to purchase equipment that would be related to worker safety. That's on an application basis. The policy also covers bond premiums for the employees that we have that are currently covered under a separate policy for money handling. And last year, or in this year's budget, it was $6,000. Currently, we are with a local agent, and that particular policy requires a 30-day written notice of non-renewal. So we would be required to give notice by the end of November before our next council meeting. And this particular agent has let us know. We did give them a courtesy call. The senior agent is retiring. But we did give them a courtesy call to let them know that we were considering other options. And they did provide to us that they were working on a quote, but it would not be available until mid-November. So the timing's not ideal, but I would, you know, I would like for y'all to consider the differences in the current coverage versus what Garma has to offer, especially things that we would either have to pay for separately or, you know, that we could get for free. And that would be some legal advice as it pertains to personnel.
So this would be above what we actually have now? Would be more
Yes.
coverage?
Yes. What this, parts of this would cost us 3 separate ways.
Right, different
other-
costs.
Right.
Okay.
Questions? Council?
And I didn't include it with the packet, but I do have a quote that I can give to y'all that shows the different pages. They did fax it to us and I had written on it because they were having trouble emailing it to us. But I can ask for a clean copy and I can provide that to you.
No way they could get anything to us by our meeting on the 9th.
The company that's,
Yeah. the
I
company
can ask, I was told mid-November, but if we wait until, you know, the December meeting, and that's going to be inside the 30
That's
days.
after the 30 days.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's something, Brandon, next week, if I could get something from him when we have our public hearing, if this is something, you know, it would be part of a special call to consider. If we could, you know, do that after our public hearing next week, if I could get the quote from the president.
So our special call meeting is going to be what day?
We have a public hearing scheduled for Monday week, a week from today, to talk about our budget. I don't know if we could add on an item, if I could
Is
get
that
the
possible?
information.
What you would do is, if you all, it's unfortunate, when I spoke with our broker, admittingly, he understood that the logic behind us trying to look at other budgetary issues, and quite candidly, City Attorney Siphon has done a phenomenal job for us, but in municipal government, you do have a city attorney that you do want working with staff and the elected body in regards to city-type business. Typically, GERMA is utilized by over 300 plus cities because they do have a specialized firm that deals with labor issues. Because we are very litigious as a society, and employee and personnel issues are very contentious, it is nice to have that ability to pick up the phone and call someone who specializes in it. And Mr. Siphon and I have spoken as well. He's worked with GERMA and other municipal organizations. It's not a matter of anything that, yes, this is a shared pool, meaning that you are in a entity that has a shared pool of other cities. So your rates are variable because you're in a shared pool. When you do have a broker going out, there is value in getting proposals and bids for insurance to help drive down your cost. But I think we have reached a point to where some of our base cost is starting to get close to what the shared pool cost would be with GERMA. So I think it was prudent for us to at least look at it. I am completely of the mindset that we do have a meeting next Monday, the 9th, where we're having a public hearing. We can have it as a special call meeting thereafter for final consideration of what you all want to do with regards to this. Unless, I will be forthcoming that unless there is just an offer that we cannot refuse, based on where we are with our legal expenses currently, we are running at a good 50-50 or even 60-40 on the high end of our legal expenses dealing with personnel matters. So for whatever it's worth, we've tried to evaluate what we think we could achieve in savings in 2021. But I do think that if they're able to get us something by next Monday, then we're certainly receptive to tabling this till then.
Council, what's your pleasure? Looks like our options are to accept this now and move forward, or table it till our special meeting.
I make a motion that we accept the Germa offer and move forward with it.
We have a motion to accept the government offer and move forward. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept government as a new provider for casualty insurance. Is there any further discussion by council?
I do recognize that there could be the other option, but at this point, I believe the most attractive offer is on the table. So given the complete circumstances, this is, in my opinion, the right move.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same. The motion carries, and we now have government. Item F, consideration of request for reduction in associated fees for Gateway at Grandview and Brandon and Michael Ledford. I'm going to let you bring this forward, Brandon.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council, and for the public, in the most practical sense, this particular development is out along Highway 515. If you're leaving town, going southbound, it's the large development on the right past the hospital, just before you get to the intersection of 108. There's been a lot of grading and dirt moving for a period of time. Lonnie and his team has worked wonderfully with respect to just keeping the project moving in accordance with wanting to make sure that project is successful, as it is a gateway into our community and that it does fill a niche in the market that is needed with regards to some active adult housing. Staff has made a commitment to the new owners, developers of this project, that we would provide them an opportunity to address some of their concerns and challenges that has been ongoing for a number of months. Just to put the background, this is broken down into phases. You have in your packet a map that or a drawing that they've provided in terms of phases. This is considered phase 2, albeit it's beginning now versus phase 1 that is closer to the highway and the intersection of 108. But phase 2 is the proposed 103, 104 unit single family detached product for active adult. The challenge is that some of their development costs that they'll get into momentarily, and a lot of the other unknowns has presented some financial challenges, and they've asked staff if there's any way that we could consider reducing or waiving the $3,500 cost of construction aid fee that goes along with residential units. I advise that the staff does not have the ability. However, in respect to providing you all with a basis or some sort of logical analysis of how we could help incentivize this project, get kind of over this hurdle. In the most simplistic form, if you look at $3,500 a unit at 103, then you take a $75,000 credit that they were under the, I guess their due diligence revealed that the previous owner had indicated that there was no cost of construction to be paid because the previous owner had been part of a group that had, I guess, gathered together some years back and provided $75,000. Therefore, they were working under their pro forma that there was no more requirement for cost of construction. So taking that into consideration, we say that if that credit is provided in good faith, not based on any merits or discussion points, that arrives at a remaining balance of $285,500. We do have some existing utilities, existing sewer, lift station near the site that it will be going to. I've tried to articulate to the owners, developers, that although staff's receptive to incentivizing this project, we do have to be mindful that if we do incur some cost, whether it's upgrades or some unforeseen on our ends, we would need to try to mitigate those as well. So part of the cost of construction monies that were seeped into the enterprise funds would presumably help offset any of those. Albeit, I don't know if it would be in the amount of $285,500. Therefore, if you just incentivize and say, from a partnering, cost-sharing perspective, you could consider $142,750 as an option. That is something that I think is worth exploring, and I think the representative is here to kind of elaborate a little more on the why, the need. I just wanted to provide you a background, or at least the staff analysis, that I hope I've done a good job articulating to them, in so much as we do want to make sure this project moves forward, and anything that we can do to facilitate. So, Mr. Mayor, Council, you good to go?
That's just an update. Yes. Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. I'm Michael Ledford. I'm a principal of MLF Gateway Development, a single-purpose entity that we formed to develop this project specifically. As Brandon articulated, we purchased the project as the project was heading south. So there had been some site work performed. Part of our due diligence was to look at site work remaining and some of the impacts that we would have moving forward with the project, including impact fees and permitting fees. So as Brandon discussed, part of our due diligence was uncovering a $75,000, I guess it was a conglomerate of other developers that were up and down 515 from 108 north, which all contributed to a $750,000 new sewer extension down 515. We were told, without having communication directly with the city, that this was part and parcel of an impact fee that we would be owning, so we wouldn't have impact fees with the city moving forward. So with that said, I'd like to, one, give you an update on where the project sits today. This was taken about a week ago, so we have curb and gutter in our Phase A. We have some of the amenities built out, including pickleball courts. We have a pool. We have the foundation about ready to go on our clubhouse. We have approximately 53 lots fully developed and ready to be built upon. Unfortunately, the storm last week set us back, and we should be in mid-throes of paving today, but unfortunately that was pushed back a week. So we'll start paving next week. On Monday, we anticipate that the paving is a 3.5-day event. We will have the pads ready to be developed, and we'll begin fully developing our pads to go vertical, with our first deliveries being models, specs, and pre-sales to be delivered by end of February 2021. We do have great interest in the community from
clients as far as New Mexico, where we have a lot reservation. We're also bringing in some citizens from the Midwest and other parts of the Southeast, so it's more than just a local interest in the project. So in all told, we have 18 lot reservations, 7 contracts for homes to be delivered by the end of April. The first delivery is taking place in February. And then we have deliveries past April that we'll focus on after these first starts. So we'll be starting, in our first 2 construction starts, we'll be starting 15 homes, including 3 models. So that's where we sit today. I do want to thank the cooperation that we've gotten out of the city. I think our relationship as it relates to developer and municipality has been very good. I want to thank Lonnie Waters specifically, Ian, Shauna Coleman, Christy Earwood. They've all helped us walk through the City of Jasper's process and really move this project along. I've developed mainly in the metro Atlanta area, and I can tell you, bar none, this is the most cooperative municipality I've ever dealt with. So I do appreciate that. So the real matter at hand is this impact fee that, again, as Brandon articulated, we did not have in our pro forma. As part of our due diligence, we took the contribution that was made by the previous owner as fact that this would be part and parcel or the end of any impact fees. This is a 55-plus active adult community, so there will not be any school-age children, anybody under the age of 18 allowed to reside here for more than 30 days in consecutive per the covenants. So there won't be any impact from this project to the school system. The infrastructure is there. We actually have worked through easements from 108 north to bring gas and electricity from 108 coming north through to phase 1, and then this project, phase 2. We do have phase 1 under contract, and we will be presenting some more granular plans that we'd like to talk to the city about as it relates to phase 1, but right now we're totally focused on getting this project up, running, and product sold. I mean, we're very excited about the interest that we've gained so far. We're partnering with Harry Norman, who's got a national reach to help us market this. So we've got fairly extensive marketing plans that reaches to really all 4 corners of the U.S. to bring residents here. And then after we get this up and running, we plan on beginning the project and the site work in 2021 to the contiguous property south down 515, which we call phase 1. And as this develops, there are other contiguous plats that we're looking at that would extend our reach, and based on demand, we build out the other remaining plats. But right now we're focused solely on phase 2 and then getting phase 1 up and running. So that's an update on the project. We would appreciate any consideration that you have as it relates to these impact fees that we were told did not exist when we purchased the property based on this 2001 memo. So any consideration that you would give for us in that regard. And I've had long discussions with Brandon, and at this point we're not asking to have the fees totally waived. We'd like to maybe perhaps work through Brandon's proposal on splitting those fees, taking our $75,000 credit for the sewer infrastructure that was put there before I purchased the property, and then perhaps split the remaining fees if that's at all possible. So we appreciate any consideration that the elected body has to look at this and, further our developments further south down 515. Any questions?
Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Ledford?
The photographs for phase A, you said?
Yes, on phase 2, we're developing that subdivision. The first 60 lots, we have developed every lot and infrastructure, including the curbing and soon-to-be paving. And then once we reach 30 pre-sales, we will continue on with phase B. So we totally anticipate that by the end of first quarter, we'll be working to develop the rest of the pads on phase B. We already have lot reservations for 2 lots on phase B. So yeah, we're moving forward, but yes.
So the 103 lots are A and phases A?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've broken up in 60 and 43. 43 is the tail end of the development, the site development.
I want to make sure I understood what we were talking about.
Any further questions? Dr. Brock?
Yeah, I have a question. This project, we first became aware of this project only about 2 years ago. And at that time, there was a little bit of, a rush coming from one of your partners who's, I guess, no longer with your group. I don't know the situation of that, doesn't really matter, but we were told at that time that we were going to have product by March of 2018. I believe that's correct. I'm just kind of curious why this hasn't come before the council before. The issues of the impact fees, and technically we don't have impact fees, and I don't necessarily want to get into a discussion on impact fees. I think in the very near future will be similarly to what we just did with our planning and zoning. We're going to define what we call it, whether cost of construction or impact fees. And we've been very fortunate since Brandon has come on board that we try to do best practices when we can. But the question is, why is this coming up before? I know there's been a lot of problems with the project, and with that property in particular for a long time. So can you just give me a little insight on that? And
I will. I'll give you a chronology. So to your point, there was some issues with the project before we owned the property. I purchased the property, or my group purchased the property in December of 2018. The previous developer and owner, we purchased that property with a firm price both for the land and the developed lot, which contractually they were obligated to deliver to us by October of 2019. Well, halfway through, they failed miserably. We released them from the development portion of the contract. We were owners of the land, so I had to continue with the development, which we've done. And we worked very hard to keep that site, given the issues that it had before we owned it. From an erosion management perspective and from a site development perspective, we tried to stay ahead of the game, but it slowed us down considerably, where they were moving dirt around, but they weren't making really any progress. They probably slowed down that project by a minimum of 8 months, and they were out there 11 months. So when we hit the gas, and when we're now to a point where we're looking at permitting, that's when we came to the city and uncovered the fact that there were, in fact, this $3,500 per home charge, which was in late August of this year is when we found out. That's when we approached Lonnie and Brandon, had the discussion. We were going to get on October's agenda, and it just worked out that November was best for you and for us.
don't misunderstand my question. I've worked with Craig for the last several years and gotten to know him very well, and we're very excited about the project. So I'm just we don't necessarily stay on top of every single little development.
No, totally understood, and
Every little thing that changes in a project, so.
No, I didn't misconstrue, but I hope that gave you the chronology of where we sit today. But we are ready to build. We should be building in the next 3 weeks, and we're excited about the project. It's just, we are a for-profit entity, and an impact like this of $365,000 that we didn't have factored in the financial, and you combine that with some of the other perfect storm items of the impact that we had before we owned it, and they carried over to our ownership, it's impacted the project a lot financially, which is why we asked for consideration. Frankly, we wouldn't be asking for consideration if it wasn't for those extenuating circumstances.
Any further questions, council?
I think one of the concerns that I have with no more information than I have is that this $75,000 number has come up before. And I know historically, I know at least one project where even though that $75,000 fee had been paid as one of the original investors, there were more fees added on after that fact for a project. And so, I don't know if Mr. Siphon has, if there's a document that demonstrates that your due diligence was, I don't know if there's a document that shows that that was an agreement, and a legal agreement, which could potentially, in my mind, impact how future developments might be handled along that corridor. So that's my concern, main concern, really.
Mayor, council, I have a similar concern when it comes to legality and just a little more information on the project itself, some of the setbacks and what our requirements would be moving forward under any given circumstance. Mayor, if you're willing to entertain a motion,
I'll entertain a motion.
I would be moving to table this until I can get further information.
Could you put a time specific?
Yeah, absolutely. I make a motion we table this until our next regular call meeting.
Council, I have a motion to table until our next regular call meeting.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Second? Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by council?
I think my concern is how are we going to get that information? What information are we really looking for?
And I think that's where we use our city manager.
So council would communicate with city manager on concerns and try to get a report back by December 7th, I think it is. Right.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. We'll table for 1 month.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Mayor. So we are going to have to permit the first 15 units or so to get those started here directly, meaning that probably by the end of this week we'll start that process and get the permitting done. Can we table the impact fees until after that meeting and we pay the permitting fees now, or how would you like to handle that?
I'm going to turn to Brandon on that.
Well, honestly, if I might, Mayor, I think that leads into my concerns before we even give a direction on that is I would like for us to communicate with legal. I would be afraid of us making a move and any implications in the future. I'm just really unclear on which direction, honestly.
And I think what's being expressed is would the permitting, in essence, forego your ability to decide if there should be some sort of incentive? The way that I would approach this in good faith, once again, is during our due diligence of seeking out specific documents and legal advice is We would just hold the position that anything paid to the city to get things going in full could be considered a credit, depending on how things shift out with this elusive document, if you will. I would, at least from a staff perspective, add that into our kind of analysis, if you will, of incentivizing the credit.
Fair enough?
Fair enough? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, under item G, consideration and approval for a reverse Christmas parade down Stroll Drive. And Haley Boucher, is Haley with us? I see. Haley, are you with us?
I am here.
Good deal, good deal. And Amber will go parade? Okay. So Amber, would you come and with Haley, present to us what you're looking for?
This is really a JMA parade. We are just offering our assistance. So Haley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I just kind of wanted to take a few minutes to give you an update on where we are. I know I alluded to the last time that I was in front of you about having a Christmas parade of some sort since we were not able to do anything for Halloween. So I've met with Amberly in the chamber a few times. We've met with the city and county police. We've met with Lonnie, just kind of to see what the logistics of it would be. At first we talked about Newton Park, and then it was decided that if we were to have rain, it would be a complete disaster. And we also talked about if the fire hall had an emergency, they'd never be able to get their fire trucks out. So we kind of scratched that idea. I think Chief Level come up with maybe having it come down Stroll Drive. So as of right now, that's what we would like to do. So I guess I'm before you asking for a closure of that street for several hours on that day. Just to kind of let you know what's going on. We're still planning the lighting of the Christmas tree, which Mary from No Pickens has offered to do live for us. We would still like to have the band there. They will be around the Christmas tree, so they'll stay at the top of the hill. We'll start the band, or start the parade at the four-way there for Mark Whitfield. And it'll go down to Mary Street. And, you know, I guess it would be a good problem to have if we had to go further as far down as the chamber. I'm hoping we've got some great interest, but with this parade, we never know who's coming until the day before. So I can't even give you an idea. We've got 3 confirmed and that's it, but I'm really not concerned that we're not going to have enough. So we bought a transmitter that we are able to transmit over the radio. We have are planning still to do the reading of the Christmas story and just put it on loop. We are looking into possibly having a DJ come and take over the night. DJ Dano, if any of you have come to our New Year's Eve programs, he is wonderful. He's very engaging. And while people are waiting in line, which we know is probably the biggest issue right now, they're worried how long it's going to take to go through, they would be able to listen to him and be entertained by him. The police officers have pretty much figured out what we need to do for directing of traffic, so we've have 4 officers for 4 hours. They know exactly where they're going to go. At Chief Level, maybe I'll speak more on that. We will do directly at 6 o'clock the lighting of the Christmas tree, and then the parade will start directly after that. We will go 6 to 8 or until we're finished. Hopefully we're going to 8 o'clock. So, and we'll get people through as much as possible. We figure we need about 20 volunteers to basically line up down the street and make sure people are staying in their cars, that people are staying moving, that the float participants are doing as they've been asked, which is stay within the confines of your float. If you're gonna give out candy, we ask that one person do it and that they be gloved and masked up. Nobody's to get out of cars, nobody's to get in cars. It is going to be as much social distancing as we can possibly take care of, and we have plenty of volunteers to make sure that happens. Let me see if I've missed anything. I think that is, so I don't go real long, I think that's probably the gist of what we have going on, and we would love to hear what you guys think of that.
I think it's wonderful, but I'm just one person, and I'm gonna ask council what they think about it. Council, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we allow for the request for the Jasper Merchants Association to hold the reverse Christmas parade down Stroll Drive.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to allow JMA to hold the Christmas drive down Stroll Drive. Any further discussion?
Haley, there are some residences on the street. Any consideration about that? Or any concern?
We've already talked about, we would certainly go have a conversation with every one of those residents. Amberly's better at that than I am, so you want to take that one, Amberly?
Certainly, and we are working with Chief Lovell and Lonnie, and that was discussed at our meeting, and we will go let them know that from X time to X time, there's going to be a lot of congestion on that street. We will not block driveways, and there will be, traffic moving, so nobody will be blocked in, but we will let them know ahead of time.
No fair, no more.
Right?
And Haley, I'd like to go ahead and be one of your volunteers. So you've got me on camera volunteering and offering that.
All right, Kurt, what did you say?
If you have me on camera, I'm going to help you. I'm a volunteer.
I know I can count on you. Actually, and we are going to need to close Stegall, but I don't think we're going to have to close anything else. If we just close Stegall from Whitfield to Mary, that's really the only street that's going to be affected. And if possible, I would love to be able to have access to that at 3 o'clock.
I think Lonnie wants.
We would have to prevent traffic congestion up on the north end, or east end of Main Street. We would have to close Richard Street, right there between that vacant lot and the old Jeep place, to keep traffic from trying to go through there. But there's no one lives there, and I mean, it's not an issue. But that street would have to be closed too.
I just want to make sure residents, there is a couple of law offices there. I can assume there's not a whole lot of activity there on Saturday.
There's not, and I know one of those law offices is already aware, and they think it's a grand idea.
You've done your planning.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. And we are going to have a Christmas parade. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Haley.
Thank you so much. Hopefully this will be something that we can talk about for the next 20 years about the year of COVID. So appreciate your time. I didn't hear anything about what was said, but I'll get with Amberly and Kirk and get the gist of what happened. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Item 8, consideration and approval of alcohol license for renewal. And we'll let Brandon and Lindsay bring this to us.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I've enjoyed tonight so much that I'm just going to kick it over to Lindsay to do the speaking.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As y'all know, every year we ask our current alcohol holders to renew their license. So in your packet, you'll have a list of current alcohol license holders that have paid their license fees to renew for 2021. I'm just asking for permission to renew their license.
I'll make a motion that we renew their license.
Have a motion to renew this list of licenses?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same. And our licenses are renewed. Item I, consideration and approval of supplies needed for the Whirly water wastewater. Oh, we got all this. Brent, would you bring this to us?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Council, in the fashion of trying to keep things compliant with our own purchasing policy and the learning curve that we're experiencing with how we do business, I'm very proud of David Hall for bringing this to our attention, albeit maybe at 4 o'clock on council day and giving Finance Department a little bit of heartburn. You may recall that this is a project that we had identified as a priority and have monies available through the bond refinancing. Therefore, it's not a matter of having the money or doing the project. It's because the potential expense of securing the supplies exceeds the $10,000 mark. Mr. Hall was able to secure 2 bids, 2 quotes, and that's what triggered him to seek out, do we need council approval? The answer is yes, although you'll see in your packet, or at least the email, there were 2 quotes from Core Maine, one for $11,318, one for $12,660. Unfortunately, the lower, the $11,318 is not the exact specifications of the required material, so you have to throw that one out. The consolidated pipe, although they give a quote of $19,000+, if you just break down the material, it does come out to $13,872. That is comparing apples to apples in terms of the specs of the material. So what David would like is your approval to move forward with the quote of $12,660 from Core Maine, in the typical fashion of me realizing that there are oversights and hooks, and this is going to be a major undertaking of a project, and this is probably not the first time we'll be seeking an expense from you all. I would like a not to exceed amount, so between now and December 7th, if there's something that comes along, we have the monies, we know this is a project we're moving forward with, so if it pleases y'all to not to exceed $15,000, that would be very gracious.
I make a motion that we accept the quote for $12,660 for not to exceed $15,000 from Core Maine.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. For consideration of approval of these supplies not to exceed $15,000. Any further discussion from council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I have to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing legal, and I would entertain a motion that we go into executive session at this time.
So moved.
And second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. You're in executive session, and motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Our executive
Second.
session.
I second. I'll second the motion that we come out of the executive session.
Okay. We're out. Is there a motion to go back into normal session?
Make a motion to go back into session.
We're ready. Thank you. Our next item is committee report. That will be first off. Our item A would be our development committee with council members Dr. Sonny Proctor and Chris Hopkins. pretty good development report, I think. Whatever y'all want to.
Culmination of a bunch of work. Kirk and I did have a committee meeting earlier last week and met with met with somebody who's interested in a couple of developments. Whether anything comes of them or not will be determined. One of those included a possible R3 zoning and with commercial adjacent and also a cottage style, which would be our first cottage development. It's close to town, but there was some follow-up questions. So far, nothing's come back to us. But other than that, everything's moving right along. I'm excited.
So on this end, looking at from the staff level, I believe there's a immediate need to replace one of our vehicles in the development division. So I would like for the staff, just a recommendation from the committee, Mr. Douglas, if you can collect some information on the replacing of the vehicle that Mr. Waters is currently driving. I believe it ran out of legs a while back. It's not even on the last leg.
Just to clarify, would you like for us to go ahead and secure some bids to present you all with some options December 7th?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think they.
I mean, you pay for it yourself if you want.
Okay, anything further? Item B, Street Parks Committee, that would be tonight. Councilmember Ann.
Yes, the younger children's playground equipment has been ordered. Thanks to Tara for the hard work she's done in obtaining all that. Not sure exactly when it's going to be installed, but it is ready to be picked up.
Okay, great. Administrative Committee, that'll be Council Members Jim Looney and Ann.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Water and wastewater will be Dr. Study Proctor. You've got water and wastewater tonight.
I don't know the actual dates. I think that I haven't spoken to David in a while, but I do think we're approaching maybe in January we'll be requesting our bids for our wastewater treatment plant. I think that's the latest I got, which will be exciting news. And right now, that's all I can recall that I got on the plate.
Thank you. Police and Fire Committee, that would be Councilman Redfield and Councilman Looney.
We did meet with Assistant Fire Chief about the need for a second fire station within the city limits for the budget meeting. That was discussed a little bit at the budget meeting, and I'm sorry I can't remember the day now, but there's some work that needs to be done to continue that project. We will continue looking at it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The only other update I have from committee would be there is a new truck in the fire department. I believe the rescue truck has been striped and is it in service yet?
I believe so.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Financial report. This says Brandon, but
I saw it.
Beverly, would you please help us with this?
Okay. Revenues for the month are higher than expenditures. In October, in the general fund, we received $130,000 in lost receipts for October. And just this afternoon, we got the email about SPOS, and that came in at $68,775, which is a little bit higher than our budgeted $65,000. That's good news. Building department took in a little over $11,000. The 3 trucks were purchased, as we discussed. And we got the check, the sale of equipment over $130,000, which is good. The water and sewer fund, revenues exceeded expenses, and cost of construction aid receipts was $14,000.
And Mr. Mayor and Council, just to, once again, we're in November, just to echo those sentiments and to expound upon what we talked about seemingly half the year with regards to budget and finances. We've continued to monitor and try to control our expenditures, knowing that we will run a deficit. We have tried to mitigate how much of that we have to use in fund balance. You may recall the amended 2020 budget did project us using well in excess of 400 plus. I think the most recent financials at the end of last week had us around 140 use of fund balance. So we are continuing to curb expenditures. We will have to purchase some things. We will have to spend some monies. But just for you all and for the public, we are definitely trying to use as little of that as possible so that when we get into 2021 and we have a presumably balanced budget, it will greatly help our efforts in operating and staying within our revenues.
Thank you. Lonnie Waters, will you give us a development report, please?
Okay, for the month of October, we had 16 building permits issued, 8 residential, 2 commercial, 2 remodel, 3 electrical, 1 mechanical. We've had 4 requests to annex into the city. That will be going before the planning board on the 24th of November. We've had 3 sign permits, 46 on-site building inspections, 5 plan reviews, 17 soil erosion inspections, and 9 new business applications. And we're discussing today getting ready to send out for business license the first next month to have all them reviewed.
Thank you, sir. Chief Luffy, for the police report. It's good to see you back again.
We got how to do this, what I do. That's good right here.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Dr. Rogers. Hey, man. I'll read my police report for the month of October. We responded to 723 calls for service from the 911 center, responded to 58 motor vehicle accidents, issued a total of 78 citations for the following: 2 DUI, 35 speeding, 2 seatbelt, 1 shoplifting, 1 reckless driving, 1 uninsured motorist, 31 miscellaneous, 4 suspended or revoked, and 1 citation for unlawful use of a wireless device. Georgia State Patrol issued a total of 131 for a grand total of City Court 209 citations. Following warrants were issued: 2 for aggravated assault, family violence felony, 3 battery, family violence misdemeanor, simple battery, family violence misdemeanor, simple battery misdemeanor, disorderly conduct misdemeanor, and reckless conduct misdemeanor. Miscellaneous calls responded to: 40 alarm calls, 15 disorderly, 7 harassment, 9 trespassing and loitering, 29 suspicious activities, 17 domestics, and investigating no burglaries. City manager wanted me to address, as you well know, I think it's been a month and a half, maybe 2 months, Jim Gleason, my assistant chief of police, retired. Effective the 28th of October, we had some rank changes and some different assignments. I'll just give you the basics. Officer Ellis has been with me approximately 15 years, was promoted from rank of sergeant, is now on night shift. Sergeant Nathan Henderson, who was a sergeant on night shift, he was promoted to detectives in CID, Criminal Investigation Division. And Andrew Cochran was promoted to lieutenant over CID. And Lieutenant Matt Dawkins was promoted to the rank of major and is now my assistant police chief. And I think so far it's working out good. We're short one due to COVID. Talked to Mark. He's doing a lot better. Talked to him today. Doing physical therapy. He's still kind of raspy, but he's getting through. He's eating well. He's getting some of his weight back. Doing training online. I mean, he's mandated. And I'll just speak for him. I appreciate all the, I'm not a Facebooker, but all the thoughts and prayers that went out to him, rooting for him. And but he's doing better, and I think he's going to come back. So, in addition, got a phone call. You heard me back there yapping. Our police trucks, both of those are completed. Captain Fisher and Major Dawkins will be heading along with a third person to drive them up there to Blairsville. They will be in service tomorrow. And as far as the Christmas parade, as far as off-duty, I think Haley said something about what we're going to have. We're going to have one on Main Street, kind of regulating the flow. We're going to have one in Mary and Stegall. You know, that's a three-way stop. We're going to have them. We're not going to stop the stop signs. We're going to keep them pulling. Then we'll have an additional officer at Mary 53 to pull them out. And we're also going to stay a little bit later, the off-duty personnel. Simple fact, we're going to need to get those floats out of there, and they're probably going to be on the exit on the 53, so we'll direct the traffic and pull them out of there.
So for those of you who may not know, full disclosure, I did come up with an idea to put this down inside of Lincoln Park, and our wonderful police chief come up with a better idea. And as I have always said, best idea wins. So your idea is much better than mine. I'm looking forward to it.
It was kind of funny how we come. Me and Matt Dawkins rode together. He took me up to City Hall, and we're coming down Stegall, and the school's been closed. And you know, there ain't but about 2 or 3 residents on that road. And I'm driving down there drinking coffee. I said, man, this would be a great place for a parade. And then we met Lonnie in the parking lot. He said, yeah, I thought about that too. So they were all tickled. I think it'll work well.
I think so too.
Chief, you said you were short one. You've got some retirements, I believe, coming up?
I got 2 of them coming up,
Fisher.
Captain Fisher and Charles Allen.
And,
Fisher, who was the other one retired?
Charles Allen and Cliff Fisher.
Brandon on the fire report.
It should be in your packets, just for y'all and for the public, in light of continuing to be mindful of the pandemic and COVID and minimizing the amount of staff we do have. Because there was nothing other than this, I told Fire Chief Roper he did not have to attend. It's in your packets. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. And I appreciate it.
All right.
As is my custom, is there anyone else who is present that has anything to bring before our city before we close? Step forward to be recognized.
Last name is Neely, first name is Perry. Live 133 Pinell Street here in
We're
Jasper.
well familiar with you, Mr.
I've seen me enough, so it's done. I have a somewhat ongoing issue involving supposedly a sewer line.
I thought it was water the last time that we talked. We get that fixed?
Well, yeah, I have surface water to the rear of my property. This is a supposed sewer line that crosses my property from a house across the street. And I say supposed because it shows it on the plat, but no one has been able to look at it yet. I've called 2 or 3 times, people have been out. I can't find, don't seem to find a line, and I don't get any kind of answer. But I have a couple of trees that have died in the line that appears to be close to where it's at. I don't want it. Lonnie said he drew it on the plat, on your plat, the city's information, and he wasn't sure whether it was on my side of the property or the other. And I'm not either, because nobody's been able to look at it. But what I wanted was to do some landscaping in there, so I called for a locate. My gas line, my electrical line, and my ETC line comes in on that side of my house. A water line on the opposing side of the house. My sewer line comes out well below where this issue is. It goes to, but suppose it doesn't tie into this line that runs down the line. But I'll tell you is that I've had 2 trees that have died, just unexpectedly. We're healthy. I've got holes where you could step down in them. And I've been putting grass clippings in these things for 4 years. And it just keeps going away. I don't know what that is. I've asked, they came out to put some dye in across the street. It did not tie into the sewer on that side of the street. It showed the manhole on the side of the street I live on, which means that evidently there's sewer that does cross there. I don't know why. 1997 was stuff put in, so I have no idea. But, you know, what I wanted it located so I can do what I need to do. And I can't get it done. I've had people come out, well, give us a few days and I get no results. So this is a sewer that, I understand, I own the property. But I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. I've already provided information to the city council before a couple of times that this is an easement that the city of Jasper owns. It was given to them in 1997. Got the documents to show it. Over here at the courthouse. Mr. Weaver was the mayor then, and I forget what's his name. Bill Pickett was the attorney, and he said then, yeah, it's a legal document. This is our responsibility. I can't get anything done. I don't know if it needs to be brought forward to you. Somebody else going to handle this or what? I'd like to get some kind of answer. It's been going on for me for a couple of months now. I can't seem to get a solid answer out of anything.
Okay. So at this point, then you're just trying to find out where a sewer line is. Is that your problem?
I don't know if there's a sewer line. It shows on a plat that there is a sewer line from my home across the street. It comes through my property, on the side of my property. Now, there's also a sewer line and a storm easement on the rear of my property that feeds everybody up and down the street right there, and it also catches a lot of water from starting right below your house, whatever comes down through there, and turns down plywood and comes under there, all that right there. That's stormwater, that easement, that's a stormwater easement, and a sewer easement there as well.
Okay, bring your documents to my office in the morning.
Should have them already. I don't know why we'll have to keep bringing stuff.
I don't know about that. I cannot do anything about the past. I'm really good on the future. So bring your documents, or bring them to me right now.
Right there, I don't have a plat with me, but right there is
Another plat. Okay, I'll look at this, and we'll be back in touch. It probably won't be tomorrow. We're having this thing called an election. So,
I already told you, don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Stood in line for an hour and 18 minutes. No, I really, true. I'm just looking for an answer. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere, not yet anyway. I just won't, because I don't know what's there. But something is causing an issue in my yard where sunken in places are, and I don't think my electrical line or my gas line or my ETC line will be the cause of it. I don't have anything else to feed my house coming that way.
All right. Thank you for your input.
All right.
Let's see, a motion to adjourn is always in order, and I would appreciate a motion to adjourn. And a second. Second.